everybody. For those watching on television, it's 28 degrees in here.
Is that what it is?
I don't know what it is, but let it be said, the air conditioning in the Senate works. Thank you all. We're going to have a hearing today about all things Crossfire, Hurricane, and the Mueller investigation. We'll have 5-minute rounds, and as usual, I'll try to make sure you are not cut off at 5 minutes and finish your thought. And I appreciate all the participation. Mr. Rosenstein, thank you very much for coming to the committee voluntarily, and we appreciate your service to our country and your participation in the hearing today. And I'll try to do a pretty short opening statement, Senator Feinstein, then we'll get right to the witness. So why are we here? I think we have a clip that I'd like to play now. This is of Mr. Rosenstein, May 1st, 2018.
It really does illustrate, though,
wait a minute. Turn it up. Stop.
The distinction between the way we operate in the department, and we make mistakes. That's not to say we're flawless, but the way we operate in the Department of Justice, if we're going to accuse somebody of wrongdoing, we have to have admissible evidence and credible witnesses. We need to be prepared to prove our case in court, and we have to affix our signature to the charging document. That's something that not everybody appreciates. There's a lot of talk about FISA applications, and many people that I see talking about it seem not to recognize what a FISA application. A FISA application is actually a warrant, just like a search warrant. In order to get a FISA search warrant, you need an affidavit signed by a career federal law enforcement officer who swears that the information in the affidavit is true and correct to the best of his knowledge and belief. And that's the way we operate. And if it's wrong, sometimes it is, if you find out there's anything incorrect in there, that person is going to face consequences. Sometimes there are innocent errors, but if not, you can face discipline or potentially even prosecution. So.
Well, thank you. That was delivered at the Freedom Forum by Mr. Rosenstein, May of 2018, and you described the way the system's supposed to work. And what brings us here is the fact it didn't work that way. We know now, based on the Horowitz report that was delivered to this committee in December 2019, that the FISA warrant application process did not work the way Mr. Rosenstein described it in 2018. What do we know? We know that exculpatory information was withheld from the court. We know, according to Mr. Horowitz, without the Steele dossier, paid for by the Democratic Party, prepared by a former British agent working with a Russian subsource, without that dossier, there would have been no warrant issued against Carter Page. We also now know that an email was doctored to get the FISA warrant by a lawyer at the FBI. So why are we here? We're trying to find out how that happened. We're trying to find out how Crossfire Hurricane got so off script. And our desire is to make sure it never happens again. Every American should be concerned by the fact that the Inspector General found criminal wrongdoing, abuse of power, and a warrant application against Carter Page, a advisor to the Trump campaign, and we're here to try to find out who knew what when. Find out, Mr. Rosenstein, did you know that the subsource disavowed the dossier in January 2017 to the FBI? Says a bunch of bar talk and hearsay. Did you know that the FBI lawyer doctored an email showing a relationship between Mr. Page and the CIA? He changed it where there was no relationship. Did you know that? And if you didn't know it, why? And we're going to ask everybody who signed the warrant, did you know? And if you didn't know, why? And now that you do know, how do you feel about it? And I want the country to understand that the Mueller investigation was allowed to go forward with bipartisan support. I remember Senator Coons and Booker coming to me, and Senator Grassley and Senator Tillis, saying, let's make sure that Mueller can do his job without interference. The president was pretty hot when it came to the Mueller investigation, and we came up with legislation to protect the general counsel from being dismissed without cause, to let the country know, let the president know it was important for Mueller to do his job. Now it's important to find out what the hell happened. How could it gotten to be where it wound up being? What evidence, if any, was there in May of 2017 when Mueller was appointed by Mr. Rosenstein that anybody on the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians? Was there a lawful predicate to appoint Mueller to begin with? And we'll be looking at that. And we'll be looking at how the warrant was signed over and over by the highest ranking officials in this country and given to a FISA court on 4 different occasions over a period of months, and it was full of lies and criminally altered. I hope you want to know that. I sure do. And you got to remember the people running the Mueller investigation are the same people that were running Crossfire Hurricane, at least until they got fired. So the warrant application that Mr. Rosenstein signed in June of 2017, the last application against Carter Page, who prepared the application? Remember Strzok and Page? March 3rd, 2016, God, Trump is a loathsome human being. Strzok, oh my God, he's an idiot. Strzok, God, Hillary should win 100 million to nothing. These are the people in charge of the Mueller investigation. The FBI lawyer who altered the email after the election said, "Viva la resistance." This is the FBI lawyer in charge of overseeing the Mueller investigation. And finally, on August 8, 2016, Page says to Strzok, he's not ever going to become president, right? Strzok, no, he won't. We'll stop it. This is why we're here. We're going to get to the bottom of all this. And we did a lot together when it came to Russian interference in our election. We had hearings, the modus operandi, the toolbox of Russia and other autocracies for undermining democracy throughout the world. Russian interference in the 2016 election, May 2017. Extremist content and Russian disinformation online, October 2017. Protecting our elections, examining shell companies and virtual currencies as avenues for foreign interference, June 2018. Cyber threats are against our national critical infrastructure, August 2018. We have looked at Russia's role in the election. Now we're going to look at the Mueller investigation. And we're going to look hard. And we're going to see if what Mr. Rosenstein said at the start of this hearing comes true. That if somebody corrupts the process, that if somebody lies to the court, they face discipline or maybe criminal prosecution. You described, Mr. Rosenstein, the way it should work. And you gave us an indication of what happens if it doesn't work that way. Well, what will happen? There are millions of Americans pretty upset about this. There are people on our side of the aisle who believe that this investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, was one of the most corrupt, biased, criminal investigations in the history of the FBI, and we would like to see something done about it. Mr. Durham is looking at the criminality part. What is our job? Our job is to explain to the American people what the Russians were up to, and we did that together. Our job was to give Mr. Mueller the chance to do his work, and he did. Now it's our job to take the Horowitz report that showed 17 violations of the FISA warrant applications against Carter Page and try to explain how that happened and shed light on the fact that it did happen and hope the system will respond. What are we going to be looking at? We're going to be looking at General Flynn's case. We're going to be looking at the fact on January the 4th, 2017, the field office in Washington, D.C. said that there's no longer justification for General Flynn to be considered part of Crossfire Hurricane. We're going to be looking at the Mueller appointment in May of 2017 to see if there was a crime worthy of being investigated. Was there any there? We're going to look backward so that we can move forward. We're going to hold people accountable. If you don't like Trump, fine. But this is not about liking Trump or not liking Trump. This is about us as a nation. We're talking about the nominee for president on the Republican side and his campaign being under continual investigation. We're talking about warrants being issued after the president was sworn in. We're talking about a 2-year investigation that spent $25 to $30 million, turned people's lives upside down to see if it should have ever happened to begin with. We're going to be talking about how it got off the rails, who's responsible for it getting off the rails, and making sure that they're punished appropriately and the system is changed so in the future, no other candidate for president, no other sitting president has to go through this. That's why we're here. It's going to take a while, but we will not be deterred in our effort to get to the bottom of what I think was a very major abuse of power.